here's something to consider. Well, in fact, my father, when my father was dying, there was this was back in 2006, there was a drug that was in stage 3 trials. It had been, stage 1, proven not to kill people when they took it. Stage 2, been proven that it actually had some positive effect on stopping the kind of cancer that he had. And stage 3, they were giving people different doses, different people, to try to figure out what was the optimal dose. And then it would go into stage 4 trials after that, if I'm remembering all this right, and I'm sure Lucy Caldwell will correct me if I'm not. And then it would go into stage 4 trials after that, where they would determine, over the long term, give it to a bunch of people for a year or two, and see if people started developing weird side effects that were unanticipated. Their kidneys start to fail or something like that. He was eligible for this. We couldn't find a single doctor in Lansing, Michigan, who was willing to take the paperwork, the time for the paperwork, because insurance didn't pay for it. And when we offered to pay for it out of our pockets, the doctors said, we're not set up for that, and we just don't want to deal with this. But what if that's, so it's an interesting story, and I doubt it would have done anything for Dad. In fact, that drug has been pulled off the market since then. So it apparently didn't do all that much for mesothelioma anyway. But should it be or should it not be up to somebody like my father in the last weeks or months of his life, who is terminal, to be able to say, even though that drug hasn't made it all the way to stage 3 or stage 4, I'll take it in an early stage where it might actually kill me. I might spend the next 3 weeks, bleeding out of my eyeballs and in agonizing pain, but what the hell, there's a 5% chance I might survive. And the Goldwater Institute is all over this. Lucy Caldwell is with us. She's the communications director for the Goldwater Institute, goldwaterinstitute.org, a conservative think tank. Lucy, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Here's my concern. I get it that the pharmaceutical companies want to make it basically easier for people like my dad to be guinea pigs. And in fact, I could make an argument for that. Some of these drugs, people have died. One of my best friends, his wife died because she was in a stage 4 trial for I'm forgetting the name of the drug that my own wife took for breast cancer that's HER2 positive. But there was a new drug that was being developed, and Ron's wife was in a trial where she got the placebo, and she died. And this drug actually stops that particular type of breast cancer, and it cured, as far as we know. It put my wife into remission. Had his wife had access to it earlier, she'd still be alive. So I can build that case, but on the other hand, in the last weeks of somebody's life, or months of somebody's life, they're typically a little bit frantic, quite scattered, in a lot of pain, not thinking clearly. And they're certainly not qualified to read through a couple hundred pages of medical literature about the new drug they're going to take. It seems to me that somebody else needs to be in the room, somebody who's not interested in making a buck like the drug companies are, and yet, on the other hand, not interested in simply saying no or this is the way we always did it, like some bureaucracies seem. How do we do that? How do we protect people like that?
Well, Tom, first I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm so sorry for your friend's loss. And honestly, this story is a story of millions of Americans around the country who have had the experience of losing a loved one to terminal illness. About 1 million people are going to die in the U.S. this year from a terminal illness. And are there cures in trials for all of those diseases? Of course not. But there are drugs out there that could help these people that they can't gain access to. One of those patients was a woman named Michaela Knapp, and she was 25. She and her husband went on this just crazy, intense tear in the last several months to try to get Michaela, a 25-year-old Berkeley graduate, access to a cutting-edge gene therapy. And she said on her deathbed, there are people dying because they can't get access to these drugs, and I don't want to be one of them. And even she was in PR, even with all the resources she was marshaling, her husband, Stanford grad, they could not successfully lobby the FDA to get access to this drug. But I want to go back to something you said.
But there's
about pharma.
If I can just, there's another side to that has to be mentioned at the same time. And again, I'll use a personal anecdote. Just because I was there and I saw it. One of our kids is a nurse. I mean, she's in fact has a PhD in nursing, and her fiance came down with leukemia, and they had a new drug in trials, and they went off to Chicago to try this drug, and it destroyed the last 4 months of his life. I mean, it devastated him. It didn't extend his lifespan at all. The result, I barely recognized him. He probably swelled up to twice his normal size. His stomach looked like somebody stuffed 3 basketballs in there. It just devastated him. And I really, on the flip side is I was thinking this drug should have gone through a hell of a lot more trials before they tried it on Jeff.
Well, I do want to get back to what you said about pharma. Look, we would love pharma to be supportive of this measure because they can marshal a lot of resources, no doubt about it. But in fact, pharma hasn't even been out supporting this measure by and large. So I want to say, first of all, that this is not a matter of a pharma-driven initiative at all. This is an initiative that's driven by trying to have an answer to this struggle that millions of Americans are facing.
But wait a second, if ALEC is supporting this, though, the American Legislative Exchange Council,
right,
they are exclusively, when legislation comes before ALEC, it is always some industry that is promoting it. Who is in favor of it?
First of all, that's not true, Tom. But second of all, I believe that there was one presentation given on this at ALEC some time ago, but this is not a bill that came from ALEC. But hey, I would love it if ALEC would. It's our thing.
Okay,
darn it.
Cool. All right. Well, it's out there. That's good.
ALEC always taking credit for stuff. No, but I would love for groups like ALEC to get behind this. I would love for NCSL to get behind this.
Well, you're going to have to fight a corporate sponsor if you want that to happen.
No. But
because they literally put lobbyists and legislators one-on-one in the rooms together. So you're going to have a lobbyist if you're going to run it through ALEC. I'm serious. This is how it works.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll say this. Look, you're right. There are interest groups in this country. They're powerful. But when you have an issue that over 85% of Americans are supportive of, you can overcome a lot of those interests. And that's exactly what's happening with Right to Try. That's why, with bipartisan support in Colorado, it was signed into law this week by a Democratic governor. It's going to pass through Louisiana shortly. It's going to pass through Missouri. It's going to go to the ballot in Arizona. I think we're going to see many other states by the end of the year passing this. And it sounds like you've had a lot of experience with the clinical trial process, including some bad experiences. But when you just look at the numbers, if I could just put this in terms of numbers. So let's just take cancer. About 500,000 patients a year in the U.S. are diagnosed with cancer. And when people get cancer, a lot of them want to get into a clinical trial. About 40% of cancer patients try to get into a clinical trial. But it's very hard to get into a clinical trial. Only about 3% of the sickest patients in America are able to get into a clinical trial when they're facing a terminal disease. So you're right that we don't know.
In part, that's because trials are expensive, and the drug companies limit the number of people who can participate in them. They're costing the drug companies money.
Well, part of it is that we don't know exactly where the trials are. People get thrown out for a variety of reasons, but
Lucy, we're running out of time here. I wish we had more.
Okay, well, we'll get back together soon and share more ALEC conspiracy stories.
Okay. Yeah, no, the breaks are pre-programmed. I have no control over it. Lucy Caldwell, Communications Director with the Goldwater Institute. You can read all about it over at goldwaterinstitute.org. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.